I'm live now. Everything is set. Huh? Hmm. I think we have a guest right now. Hello, ma'am. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Thanks. How are you?
I'm also fine. It's so nice to have you over here on my page.
Yes, it's lovely to be here. So thank you for inviting me today. Very exciting.
That's so nice. So, before we begin with, I would like to thank you for being over here, first of all. And then I would like to congratulate you for the success of the book. I have not yet finished the book. I am halfway through and I'm really, really finding it very inspiring.
Oh, I'm
And
so happy to hear that. That's music to my ears.
oh, that's so nice. And a lot of people have actually are actually joining in. I find it Saturday to be the best day to come and chat because all my students and all the people who are connected to me through my page, they find time and everybody is like sun in waiting for the Sundaying thing. So
Huh.
that is why that is the day I think is the best to talk with some really influential person like you. I'm
Thank
really
you.
happy that I'm finally having you over here. So, ma'am, before we begin with the questions and talk more about the book, I would love to know how are you, first of all.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm in California, so it's like
Okay.
7 in the morning, and this for me is the perfect way to start the day. So
Oh,
I'm
that's
great.
so nice. And over here it's 8:30 in the evening on Saturday.
Huh.
So
Huh.
yeah,
Bilkul. And it's Valentine's Day,
it's
so I
Valentine's Day.
am
Yes.
very happy and honored that all your followers are choosing to spend their Valentine's Day with us here.
Yes, absolutely. Let's talk something about the book because a few people are actually, I think, excited to know about it, and few are wishing you namaste from India
Namaste.
all
Namaste.
across to California. So, yeah, the first thing, since the book is about your father, so the first thing that I want to ask and know about is what inspired you to write Ace of Blades and why did you choose your father's story? I mean, there might be something that you had in mind when you were writing the book. So, can you please talk about that? Brief the audience.
Yes, I mean, like any daughter, had been living with this man. I had him for 50 years of my life.
Yeah,
And he
that's
was
nice.
a very dynamic man, a very loving man, a very complicated man.
Oh,
And his life's journey was not easy. It was one filled with struggle, it was one filled with conflict, it was one filled with sort of success, failure, success, failure, success, failure. And I saw this, I was sort of firsthand part of that experience, not for all his years, but for obviously a lot of his years. And ये मैंने देखा कि how he impacted so many people as a insider in the household. You tend to think when it comes to your parents that it's you and them, and their impact is, it doesn't go beyond you, right? Because you
exactly.
live in this worldview where you are sort of in this tower, and there's your parents, and at some stage of life, maybe when you're a teenager or something like that, the parents might be, at least in your mind, the biggest obstacles to whatever you want to do. you know um, but I had realized by the time I was an adult, just how much this man impacted far and wide every single man, I would say, in India at least, who
Yes,
shaved with
absolutely.
his blades. and outside of India too, because Supermax, his legacy brand, reached a point where it became number one, the number one blade in the
Yes,
world.
exactly. Even I remember it.
Yes, yes, it was number one in volume. Gillette was always number one in value. So if you look at the price, but Supermax was number one in volume.
Yes.
And, by that time, by those years, I was already a storyteller. I was writing books. I was on radio. I was a journalist. And, you know, for all of the stories that I write, and it started out with nonfiction, actually, I knew at some level that, this was a story that needed to be brought to audiences, not for me, not for RK, but for those audiences, because there was nothing about him out there. And the impact that he made on, the world, like I said, it was just
The
like
lives of the people.
so significant that I said, this can't be. It's an important piece of Indian history. It can't be sort of forgotten and sort of swept into dust, you know.
Exactly.
Um, so it took me a very, very long time to convince him in the sense it wasn't about the convincing, it was about the timing. He was convinced. He said, okay, fine, you will write my story. But he was never ready. Every time I tried to sit him down to ask him, he was like, nahi, abhi nahi, main taiyar nahi hu. Dekha jayega. When I'm ready, we'll see. We'll let you know. I'll let you know. And it wasn't until October 2020, which was mid COVID, that
Yes.
I met him in London. I had flown from California. My parents had flown from Mumbai. My brother had orchestrated this. And that is actually when I sat down with him after the quarantine period and got maybe something like 14 and a half hours of tape, which became my primary source of material
That's
for the
nice.
book, upon which I then built other material after interviewing other people and so forth. So it's a long time coming, this book. Real heartfelt endeavor.
Yes, because exactly people think that, okay, you are writing about your father, so you already knew, that is assumed out of the readers, or maybe the people who see it is assumed that, okay, she has written about her father, or the author has written about the parent. So he or she might be knowing everything in detail and what is special about that. But sometimes we tend to forget that it's not always accessible. The person living next door, we hardly, the person that we are living with, it's difficult that we know everything about them, and it's important to let them speak about how they have gone through the things. We cannot
Absolutely.
actually visualize things and write it on our own when we're writing about somebody's life.
Absolutely. It's you think, or like you said, the assumption is that she knows everything because she's his daughter,
Yes.
she's in the household. But that actually is not true because in this case at least I could tell you, as a daughter and as a young child and as a growing child all those years, I saw a father who would leave in the morning, go to his business, and maybe I'd see him in the evening with a little bit of, coming through the door distinctive, ghanta that he would bajao and, picking up a santra. But that was it. Other days he was traveling. I
Exactly.
never got to know this man until I was an adult. I never began to understand what he does. Forget what he does, but what makes him, what gets his mind ticking, how his mind works, you know, just to get to know a person as adult. Because, it was a family where, very traditional, he did not know what to do with a girl child. Yes, he loved his daughter, but, ladkiyon ke saath kya karna hai, that's the mother's department. It was very
Exactly.
much that kind of,
Yeah.
family.
Very prevalent.
So very, very, very prevalent. So there's that, and then until you sort of dig into the story like a journalist, not even like a journalist, I was a journalist, and those were the skills that I used, to really dig into this. It's only then that you can begin to understand, that what looks very rosy on the outside, rosy tinted spectacles to the observer from the outside. Here's a man, he's done wonderful things, he's built this razor blade empire. It's not easy at all, but you can't see that from the outside. You can't understand that necessarily if you have not lived with
Lived
him
with.
and his struggle and gone deep into it. I mean, the best storyteller for all these, examples would be, I think, my mother and my elder brother. They are the real storytellers,
Yeah.
because they really saw this and experienced it firsthand in a way that even I didn't. And I had to really research this and get it out of all of
Get it
them
out
in
of them.
order to piece the story together.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And I think elder siblings have the opportunity of being close to the parent in decision making, and like the parent shares most of it from the elder siblings. This is what I believe, and I have experienced it in my life, so I'm sharing it because of that. And as you said that the father was not available all the time, so the same thing is with me. Throughout my childhood, I just got to know my father after he retired from his government job. Like he came to stay with us. Like most of the time, he was always traveling.
Yes,
So that is
exactly.
something. That is something that, as a parent, there's a distance, invisible distance, I believe, between the parent and the child. So that is what it is, a big thing to come up and fill the vacuum with the book that you have written. I really found it very interesting all the time when I was reading it. So with this, I would like to ask you another question, and that is, how did you balance narrating a business biography with making it feel personal and emotionally compelling? Like it is something that you are talking about the biography of your father, and how did you try to create a link that we are emotionally connected to the book? So please tell us something about that.
Yes, this is a great question. And to be honest, I would argue that this is not a biography, it's a
Okay.
memoir,
It's a memoir. Okay, okay,
and
fine. I would correct it.
no, 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 but I'm glad you brought it up because this was the starting point when I was submitting it to publishers.
Okay.
They would think of it as a biography and as a business book,
As a
and
business book.
it needs to be in that section of the bookstore. But the business books out there that you see are written very sort of differently. And
Yeah.
I have been a business journalist, right? So I remember it went into auction with three different publishers. And the one publisher I thought I wanted to go with, they said, but this reads like a Bollywood story. For a business book, it should be more like a business report, all these conversations and things, people you have in the room, these characters. Can you take all that out and just summarize it? And that was the last thing that I wanted to do. The very last thing. Because this is a memoir. It's RK's memoirs. The difference between a biography and a memoir is what? If I'm writing a biography, I have researched the material and I write it very factually. This happened, that
Very
happened,
factually. Yes,
about
exactly.
you, right?
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
difference, the difference with a memoir is this is a situation where in a memoir, I was in the room. Whoever RK was in the room, and it is his recollection of what happened.
Of what
And
happened.
therein,
Absolutely.
exactly, therein lies the difference. And that's absolutely
Yes.
what I wanted to do because his life and his journey and his stories were so vivid that I didn't want to shoot that down. They are Bollywood-esque. I mean, the kind of drama that
The
has
drama that he has in
existed in
his
his life.
life. Yeah,
Exactly. It was, when you write fiction, and I write a lot of fiction, you're trying to craft the perfect character with conflict, with obstacles, build out their character arc, their journey, and that really requires thinking about what is it that they want, what is it that is coming in their way and preventing them from getting what they want, etc. Over here, it was ready made. It was almost like all I had to do was cut it from life and paste it
exactly.
into my manuscript.
Cut the you actually, I think you just put the pieces together into a form of a book, and that actually,
Exactly.
like, to some of the people it was more like a Bollywood story. But I believe the people who struggle and who create a name definitely have that, I think, aura around themselves that their life actually seems to be a movie like story. So that's really nice, and I'm really glad that you actually corrected me that it's a memoir, it's not a biography. So that's really nice. I think I that was the first thing when I got to know that people how generally turn it into memoirs, into biographies, and there is a slight, very slight difference between the two, but it actually makes a lot of difference.
Yes,
So that's
absolutely.
really nice. With that, I would like to know that what were some challenges you faced when while writing about someone so close to you, like your father, and how did you navigate them? By this, I would just wanted to know that there were things that you wanted as a daughter to be in the book, and maybe your father never wanted it to be in the book. So, was there some sort of struggle, or was that some sort of a situation that came while you were writing about him in the book? Something like that.
There were a lot of things that I had to think about, because
Yeah,
like I said, his journey was so conflict ridden, you know, and when you're writing about a family, I'm writing his story. This is his story, but
yeah, it's his
obviously it
story.
impacts, yeah, but obviously it impacts other family members, other people he's related to, other people who are
Exactly.
around, you know. And I most definitely had to stop myself and think, what will this other person think? Because I did not want to sugarcoat things, but also the purpose was to explain RK's point of view and RK's lived reality, right? So every day and every moment is not rosy, and
Yeah,
RK certainly
absolutely.
had very strong opinions about others, people, and situations, and how things should function in a business sense or a legal sense, or that kind of stuff. um, Suffice it to say that he disagreed a lot with the rest of the world. And it was up to me, I thought, it was my responsibility and my duty as a storyteller to bring his truth to the world. Because if I did try to sugarcoat it, you know, or disguise or change or keep people happy or not explain the situation for what really happened, then I would not be um,
You would
storytelling
have
his
not done
lived
the
truth.
justice to it. Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. And very simply speaking, it would have been, a a lot of times, I am going to say, when people write business books and they're about families and personalities, they tend to be marketing puff pieces, things to make me look good, whoever I am.
me look good.
The
Exactly.
it's the company or the business or the business family or whatever. And I was very adamant that I didn't want to do that. This was about RK's truth. This was about his lived reality. Life is not an easy place. There's
Absolutely.
good, there's bad, and there's extremely ugly. And I wanted to bring that forth because that is the truth, that not just RK's truth, but the truth that the reader will connect with, because this is what we all live through. Every
Exactly.
moment is not just a star moment. And in order to be inspired by the life and the journey of a person, you also have to understand their difficulties. I strongly believe that.
And I also believe that there are times when we think that few moments in life will inspire other people. So it is better to write it down and preserve it for lifetime so that people can come read those things and get inspired. I've heard people who talk about, like, there are many success stories out there. It's not always about a big name. It is about the regular people, the regular readers, the students. People can find motivation in anything that they read, maybe. And I believe that writing such books about a successful person who once actually achieved the name of his own with nobody's help, with nobody's, I would say, ideas. He had his own ideas, he had his own vision, and everything came into reality. Everything was put together through hard work, through failures. So, such stories actually motivate people. And I believe today's generation actually needs such stories because failures are something that pull people down, and then they never find that courage to stand up once again. So, as you
I
said,
think.
your father had a lot of failures, he tried a lot of things, and how he came out shining like a sun through all the sunsets that he has seen in his life. It's a really inspiring story. I must say that you have done a great job by preserving the story of a man who can never be lost now. It's really nice.
Thank you. That is very heartwarming to hear because, I live in California. It's the sort
Yeah.
of center of the tech world. And when I see a lot of the young entrepreneurs and the tech entrepreneurs today, there is this culture of failure,
Yes,
that
I agree.
you can speak about. And failure is celebrated, actually. It's a good thing to say that, I'm a serial entrepreneur and I started this business and it failed. Because it shows that you've been, your experience is not just, oh, I built something and I sold it and I'm successful and I'm successful. Of course,
Exactly.
we remember all those successes, but there's a lot of failures that, go into sort of building the backbone of what will be success, and I think that's important because as people we life just presents us with these struggles and it's going to happen whether we want it or not, and
Or
it's
not.
um that ability, what I call about RK, what I say about RK is that he had this grit that would not quit. So he would rise to a stage of success and then come right down and then start again and then come right down and then start again and come right, and this is one reason, just one reason why I chose this title Ace of Blades, because the ace in the deck of cards
Yeah.
is higher than the king. It's like the highest, right? It's 13.
Highest.
But
Exactly.
ace is also one.
Yeah.
So, and this was RK's life, this coming full circle over and over again. Karmic journeys or jo bhi, whatever you want to call them. Um, and I think that that is really important. It is inspirational. I agree with you, and I would love for it. I'd love to hear that it's inspirational because only through those failures do you actually realize what
We
success
actually
means.
rise. Absolutely. That is why I believe such books should be preserved forever. Because nowadays we find a lot of stories that only talk about success, or a lot of stories that tell us and take us to a world where we have only positive things coming up. Motivational talks. Like for me, I believe that instead of reading motivational quotations, I would prefer reading
Yes,
someone's life who
story.
actually inspires, because one can pick up things from one's life. And
Yes.
instead of like everybody talks about, okay, ye ho jayega, yeah, things will fall into place together, we all know that things are going to fall into place, but that courage and that patience for falling the things into place together is something
Yes.
that is in the book that you have written. So that is really, that is something I believe is really very helpful for the people of my age group, or for the people who are actually a reader who love to read non-fiction. Now, with this, I would like to say, can you, like, as you said, that your father was having a lot of ups and downs. He had tried a lot of businesses and a lot of new things in his life. How did he, has he shared it with you, that how did he came to the idea of making a name in an industry that no one, I think, would have ever thought back then? What was the thing that he, something like that, if you can share with us?
So, my uncle, my father's elder brother, had come across these machine drawings for a razor blade plant.
Okay.
And the family at the time was looking for an area to sort of build a very strong business and didn't know exactly what it was. So part of what they were trying to figure out was like, how do these machine drawings work? Like, what is a razor blade plant about? What could this be?
Okay.
And at the time, the government was giving incentives to private companies to build out the FMCG sector because this was one area that the government did not really want to deal with. They were more sort of working into the heavier industry and the
Heavier
infrastructure
industry.
and so forth.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there was no engineer in the family at that point. The elder brother came across these machine drawings. The second brother was studying abroad. in America at the time, and Arki was the youngest son of the family. So his father said to him, "Chalo, you are going to go to Loughborough, England. You're going to study mechanical engineering. You figure out the system, for us, for our family." And that's
For our
what
family.
happened. That's exactly what happened. So RK was the kind of guy, once he decided that, mujhe ye karna hai, this is what I'm going to do, he was very adamant about building a product, the highest quality product at the lowest possible price, so that every single man could use it, could afford it,
Could afford it.
right?
That's the thing. Exactly.
Yes. But he did not want an affordable product to be marginal quality. I mean, because usually low price, low quality. I mean, that's a standard
Exactly.
sort of rule
That
for
that's
pretty
what the
much
thing. Yeah,
anything.
exactly.
Exactly. So he said, I have to fully master every step and control every step of the manufacturing. So he made the machines over the course of his life to build the blades. He rolled the steel, which was the raw material that goes into making the razor
Into
blades.
making. Yeah.
And yes, and over the course of his career and his life, he vertically integrated every process to control the costs, to control the supply chain, to control everything that went into it, to ultimately control that price and bring that price down to the lowest possible and not be dependent on, foreign steel or foreign supplies or that kind of thing. When he started out, yes, he was dependent, and then learned very quickly what happens when you are dependent on something that needs to be imported. Import taxes will suddenly go up one year because of whatever political situation or economic situation or whatever it might be, you know. And then what that does to the end price of your product. So he wanted to get away from all of that. So a lot of what people don't see and what you don't realize is that blade, that ultimate end consumer product, there's a lot of vertical integration that goes into making it, and he controlled
Into
every
making
step
it.
of the process. Yeah.
Yeah. So, exactly. That is what I think. Something begins with an idea, and then we have a lot of things behind that that actually bring that idea into existence. So this is
Correct.
an inspirational story, and as you said, your father also went for some mechanical engineering. So that is, he has actually put in a lot of effort, both physically, mentally, and then he came up with such a big name. And the thought behind that is what steals the show, that he wanted to create something that is economically very feasible for all the people and was having the same sort of a good quality as the other expensive products. This is, I believe,
Absolutely.
I strongly, lately, I've started believing in the fact that God helps those who actually help others. So he also sees that what is the intention behind that. That is what makes the difference. These days, we find a lot of cheap products with low quality, and people are buying them and using them. So, good quality in good money is really the best thing that can actually bring things, make wonders.
Absolutely.
So,
And, I would just like to add two things that
yeah,
based on what you've just touched on and mentioned. One is that, it had to be, for RK, it had to be a product that people need to use.
yeah,
Everybody needs to shave.
everybody, yeah, yeah,
Every
absolutely.
man needs to shave. So he really believed, he had an opportunity in his very young days to go work for Cosmetics Queen abroad, and from that experience, he decided that cosmetics kya hai? It's like mixing things, recipes. Nani ki recipe, dadi ki recipe, that's lovely to cook at home, but it's a weak product. Anybody can come in and, do the same thing.
Do the
But
same thing.
if I master how to make this blade with top quality, with the honing and the edging and the sharpness and the,
Yeah,
anti-rust factor, all the things that go into sort of making a perfect cut, perfect shave, you know, around your jawline, whatever it is, without, cutting you, then nobody can come in and compete with me. So that's one thing. The other thing is he was a very generous man, as you said. rightly, very, very rightly just said, God helps those who help others. RK believed that although he was very focused on what he was doing, he could and he would also help others, teach them, and also teach others in the process. For example, I mentioned a little bit earlier, one of the things he did was to develop his own raw material, the steel.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
Yes, I remember.
that
Yeah.
rolling the steel that went into making this product. Now, in the early days, all of that steel was brought from outside of the country. The
Hmm.
first today, if you look at the biggest steel suppliers in India for razor blade steel, it's Jindal. RK Malhotra was the one who got the Jindal rolling mills going in the first place, because they had these rolling mills in these very early days and couldn't figure it out. And RK was desperate for that raw material. So he said, I will teach you. I will get your rolling mills going. I mean, these are things that people don't know. And frankly, these are things that people don't do. But because, he needed that raw material for his own product, he went out there on a limb and he said, I will help you.
And this is the reason why he is a success story now. This is the reason, I believe. And I also think that the vision behind it, the vision, like as you said, that shaving is something that men will always, I think, shave. That's something
Yes.
very, that is something that we cannot deny. And cosmet, like choosing the correct path also makes a difference.
Right.
Something that it needs a far-fetched mindset for that. No one with something who thinks the next thing is going to work will, I think, do with that. So, and
Absolutely.
with that, I want to ask you one more thing, that what do you hope readers should take away from the book, both emotionally and intellectually? What should be the takeaway? Like you might be, when you wrote the book, you might be thinking, okay, the people who are reading this will take this thing from the book, something that you might have thought about it, something that you might have in your mind. What is the takeaway that we should have as a reader?
So, when I'm asked this question a lot, increasingly, and my honest answer is I would really like to hear from the readers, each and every reader who's read this book, and I would
Exactly.
like to ask them, what is your biggest takeaway? Because different people have different
Have
perspectives, different
exactly.
take. And it's really interesting for me. I strongly believe that when it comes to story, any story, whether it's fiction or whether it's nonfiction, like
Non-fiction.
this, um, so much of it is your own interpretation as the reader. And I want to understand how you interpreted RK's life, RK's journey, how it impacted you. So this is a question that I actually prefer to ask the reader. But certainly, you know, as we were talking about before, success is only it scratches the word success, the definition of success. It sort of scratches the surface of what it really is. From the outside, everything looks successful. Here was a man who should not be forgotten because he created this blade. It touched everyone. It lasted all these generations. Huh. But the struggle and the effort and the life work that goes into it, and this is not a Cinderella story. One of the early questions when I was like submitting to publishers and talking about the outline and where the book ends and how it's people were like, but it's not a happy story, it's not a happy is life always a happy place? Is that it? Everything doesn't have to be a Cinderella story.
Exactly.
Everything does not have to end in and the company is billions of dollars, because that's not the case with this particular story. Yet it is impactful, yet it is very important piece of history. Yet it is something which, as you rightly said, will last forever and should hopefully become a classic, inspiring people for generations to come.
For
And this is
generations.
what RK actually did want. He did want to inspire generations to come. Of course, he wanted to inspire them with his blade. And I would argue that that is exactly what he is doing now, and
Yes,
hopefully will
absolutely.
continue to, except it comes in a different form. It comes in the form of the story of the blade rather than the blade itself.
The blade itself, yes. And like behind the creation, we are a part of the story. Like we know what goes behind, like something like behind the scenes. We know
Yes.
what all went to into making the blade successful. We
Yes.
very like I think there are many things like that we use every day. We go, we get the things, and we use it on a daily basis. But with after reading this book, some person I believe might think that if they are using some useful thing, for example, if we are using a bag, so a handbag, so people
Yes.
might go into thinking about what went into the person who created the first handbag. What was
Yeah.
his the thing in his mind? Like reading such
Absolutely.
books actually create the curiosity in the minds of the people. And this is something I, as a literature enthusiast, believe into. And I'm someone who sort of gets into the book to critically analyze it. This is one of those books that I believe it keeps the person engaged. I went on reading and I was quite busy these days, so I couldn't find a lot of time. But while traveling, while going to and fro to my workplace, I had this book, and the people were curious about the title. I would like to, as you
Mm.
said, the reason why you gave the title, Ace of Blades. So a lot of people asked me, what is this title? Is it something of a, I mean, something that goes into mystery or horror or something like that? When I told them, no, it's a non-fiction book, and it's inspiring. When I told them that this is the person, that the one I'm reading, R.K. Malhotra sir is the person who actually was the king of the blades. So everybody is like, okay, once you are finished reading with the book, tell us about the story. I would love to know. A few of my colleagues over there in my college, they really want to know more about the book. So though I asked this question, I would love to give the answer myself. um Recently, a very there was an incident that happened. We were creating like we are celebrating a diamond jubilee of my college where I'm working as an assistant professor.
Right.
So we were asked to create a brochure, and initially it was like we wanted to create it for like 10 pages. The last moment we got to know that it is supposed to be of around 50 or 60 pages, and we need a lot of pictures and something like that. So there is an instance that came into my mind from the book, that how a person should always think of moving ahead. You have a problem and then you know the solution. It somewhere pops in, comes into your mind. All you need to have is that determination. So
Yes.
yesterday and today yesterday was an all-nighter for me. We worked 24 hours almost yesterday. Today we worked for around 18 hours, and finally it has gone into printing. So it motivated me. I was like something, it pushed me that okay, I can also do it. I should give it a try instead. Like there is
Mm.
no excuse that I can make today. But yes,
Right.
I gave it a try, and it really helped me. So, I will not take a lot of your time, ma'am, but I just wanted to say that sometimes a book leaves an impact into your mind that will help you go through small, small phases. It is not about creating a big business. It is about creating the difference on those small days. I couldn't do these things, and then after reading a book, I got an idea into my mind and I did that thing. It is something I think
Mm.
that is enough that we get from a book, that we get
Mm.
to know and learn from someone's story. So
Lovely.
yeah,
That's
though sometimes we talk a lot, but then that was something I wanted. I decided, okay, I'm going to share it with you.
Oh, I'm so glad you did. That's such a beautiful thing to share, and I'm so glad that the book resonated for you, his story, in such a way that you could,
In such a way.
correlate the two.
Yes, exactly. So, with this, I just wanted to ask you one last question, and that is that there are many people who are connected with us. And I just wanted to ask you that if somebody is coming up with a book, or somebody is willing to write something, be it fiction or be it non-fiction, what are your suggestions as a writer for them who are actually willing to write a novel, or maybe a story, be it a short story, a long story, a novel, or anything. As a writer, what are your opinions on that? Something that you practice in your daily life. Can you
Firstly,
please share
write.
it?
Yes, absolutely. Firstly, write every day.
Okay,
Just write. You might write one sentence, few sentences, one paragraph, you might write pages, but just write every day. I
write
hear
every
a
day.
lot from people that the blank page is a very scary space. I would argue the opposite. I would say the blank page offers you nothing but a world of opportunity because you can fill it with whatever you like.
Fill it with, absolutely. Exactly.
you know the other thing is, I would really say, think about very, very, very deeply about your protagonist and your
Okay.
the other characters. People will ask me, especially when it comes to my fiction, is that character based on you? Is it based on someone you know? And as a writer, every single one of your characters, protagonist, antagonist, villains, heroes, whatever, they might be, are some part of yourself, because how do you build them? How do you create them if you don't put yourself in their shoes?
In their shoes, exactly.
You know, it's for me, especially in fiction, when I've got an antagonist and I've got a protagonist, I should say, and an antagonist, and opposing factors, whether that antagonist is a person or the protagonist themselves or the situation, whatever it might be, you have to, I find, put yourself in their shoes to understand why they are antagonizing them and how. And then how does that protagonist react? How do you do that if you don't become that character
Become that
yourself?
character.
Right?
Exactly.
Because this ties back into what you said earlier, which is about the fact that when you read the book, then you feel like you've got to feel immersed in the story. You've got to feel like you are in the room with those characters, whether the
With those
fiction,
characters.
you know, or non-fiction in the case of RK and the people in his life. You've got to feel like you're there with them. And it's impossible to get that emotion, to draw that emotion, unless you put yourself in the shoes,
In the
of your
shoes.
character. Yes, to understand how
Exactly.
they would then craft their story.
With this, I'm reminded of Canterbury Tales. Like, it is from the 14th century,
Yes.
where Geoffrey Chaucer wrote Canterbury Tales. And in the introduction of the Canterbury Tales, he actually, there were around 24 characters, and he explained each and every
Everyone.
character in
Yes.
detail.
Yes.
And that is
Yes.
how we are able to relate with the characters. We think
That
that
is
these are the people around us. We either know them or have seen them somewhere. So,
exactly.
like when you were
Ex-
talking about the characters, I was instantly, my mind went to Canterbury Tales.
yes.
So, yes, that's really nice. I mean, we need to know what we are creating because we are the
Exactly.
creator of the work that we are writing or we are doing.
Absolutely. When you think
So,
about the story of your own life, whether it's just today or whether it's the last year, the last several years, we have all these characters that come into our lives.
into our
It,
lives,
they may stay for a long time, friends, family, whatever. They may stay for a very short time, fleeting relationships. They might just be, the newspaper wala or the, doodh wala who, for, fleeting moment.
fleeting
But
moments.
these are characters that play major roles or minor roles in our lives. And the whole idea is to question why, for what purpose, for what reason, right? And the same thing in a story, whether it's nonfiction or fiction, whether it's true or created. What is the purpose of that character? What role do they play? You don't want to
What
just
role?
have characters who are fillers, unless you're doing, like in Vermilion Harvest. I've got my historical fiction novel about, it's a love story set against the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Of course, there's a massacre scenes, so there's a
Yes,
crowd scene. Those, you can argue, okay, support characters filling the background, but even for those filler characters, there's a purpose, right?
there's a
They
purpose,
were,
exactly.
yeah, they were there that day. they formed a crowd, they were in the bag. There is a purpose. So the same way, you've got to think about your life, you've got to think about these characters, major and minor, who come in every day, and what purpose do they serve? How does it affect my journey if I'm the protagonist? And that's how you create story. I think it was Alfred Hitchcock who said, "What is story but
What is
life
it?
with all the boring bits taken out?"
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I absolutely agree. And the characters play a very important role whenever we are creating something of a story or be a play. And sometimes I believe this work is done by poetry as well. We
Yes.
create a character or something like that in a poetry. So literature is built on characters, most of the characters. And the only, I believe, only those books form the classics that are having rich characters, be it the protagonist or the antagonist or the fillers, as you said. So, with that, I think I've taken a lot of your time. So, with this, we'd like to conclude this chit chat session on the book show.
Thank you.
So, is there anything that you want to share, or shall we close with it, as you say, ma'am?
I would love to share the fact that I would love to hear from your followers, from the readers. I am very communicative with my readers. I love to discuss my books, ask and answer questions, talk about them. So please do reach out to me. I am reachable on Instagram. Renita_storyteller is my handle, or through my website renita.com. I do also have a specific website for Ace of Blades, which is aceofblades.org, and I'm constantly updating that with articles and bits of audio and archival material. There's a lot of great archival material about the blades and the industry and stuff there. So,
Okay.
yes, please absolutely stay in touch and tell me what you think, because a lot of what I write really feeds off of what the readers want to read.
What? Yeah, exactly. Absolutely, I agree. That's nice. Absolutely, we'll share. I would definitely share my review once I'm through with the book on my
Hmm.
Instagram page, and I'll definitely tag you. Apart from that,
Okay,
the people who have joined in, they will, and I would love once I finish reading the book, I'll share it with my colleagues, and I will also share their views on it. What do they think
please
about
do.
it? Yeah,
Please
exactly.
do. Please
Because
do.
whenever I start reading a book, I carry it all over the place along with me. So the people around are curious. Oh, she's reading a new book. Let us see what is in
Yes.
there. So
Yes.
with that, I'll create the curiosity about reading the book as well. I keep on pushing my non-reader friends to come and read. I have a lot of books with myself by the blessing of God. So yeah, absolutely. I would love to share my review once I'm through with the book. And with this, I conclude this session. And I'm really glad and thankful that you took out your precious time to chat with us on this page. And a big thank you from all the people who have joined in. Soon we'll be there with another session, maybe. So,
Absolutely. Would
yeah,
love
I would
that.
love to
And
have a good conversation with you. Thank you,
okay.
ma'am. Thank you for being
Thank you.
here.
Thank you so much.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.